Hello, and welcome to Let My People Eat, a podcast that provides satisfying talk about kosher nutrition. Here we clear through the clutter of nutrition speak, arm you with the clarity and confidence to eat, feel, and be your healthiest every day. I am Jill Scharfman, a board-certified holistic nutritionist living in Los Angeles, and with me is Dr. Andrea Moskowitz.
Hi, I'm Dr. Andrea Moskowitz, and I'm a neuroscientist and psychiatrist. I use my training and experience to integrate positive lifestyle changes into my patients' lives.
How do you keep on track during Shabbos without feeling deprived? What is the practice of mindful eating? And how can the 3-bite rule help you survive? So, Andrea, today we're going to talk about Shabbos and holidays.
That's a difficult time period for people with eating.
It is, because basically we are eating full-on holiday meals every week,
Right.
Sometimes more than once.
Right.
And it's not only, it's Friday night and it's lunch on Shabbos, but you also have a kiddush, sometimes at Shul.
Right.
And then there can be the Shalosh Shudas, which is the third meal.
Right.
And then, of course, Saturday night, people go out and have pizza. So there's a lot of eating packed into that 26 hours.
Exactly.
So what we want to talk about is Shabbos should not be a day of rest from healthy eating habits. You can indulge, you can enjoy, but a lot of people come to me and they say that eating healthfully during the week is not hard, but then Shabbos comes along and they're just bombarded with food constantly, whether it's their food that they cooked or they go to somebody's house to eat a meal. And, you know, we're supposed to make Shabbos beautiful.
Right.
And we're supposed to enjoy it. But we also don't want, you know, to make it a place where we're like, oh, why did I eat?
Right. And I think the irony of that is that sometimes we say, okay, I want to really celebrate the Shabbos. I want to celebrate the holidays. And eat all these, people eat all these foods. But at the end of the day, they actually feel worse physically than if they had stayed on a little bit healthier eating, somewhat healthier eating plan.
Luckily, we can all take a nap in the afternoon.
Well, even so, I think even with that, people's digestion goes off, their energy level is off. They just don't feel as good by the end of the day.
Right. So what are some of the things we can do? We can plan ahead. We can say, I'll have my wine, I'll have the challah, I'll have, one-piece potato kugel. You can kind of just, if you're cooking the meal, for sure you can plan out what the meal is going to be and what direction you take. If you're going to somebody else's, enjoy yourself. We're not saying don't enjoy yourself, but we're saying kind of just be mindful of you're going to be in these situations and what you want to get out of it. Also, a good idea is, you don't have to fill up your entire plate.
That's true.
You can always go back and get seconds.
Right. And speaking of that also, you don't have to have full-on portions of everything. Right. So there's this thing called the 3-bite rule. I think this is a good time to talk about it. Okay. So what the 3-bite rule is basically is after you've taken 3 bites, chewed it, swallowed it, the 4th bite, you're not going to get any more new taste sensations from that food. You sort of maxed it out. Your taste buds are not going to respond any differently. Your taste buds are very simple, actually, and they're not going to respond any differently. So if you just want to have taste, you don't have to have the full portions. Take a small amount, have your 3 bites, maybe a 4th if you really love what you ate, and then go on.
Right. And like we said, you can always go back and have more.
Right,
but
if you really want it.
You might be okay. Also, we would say, everybody loves variety, but sometimes variety works against us. We don't need we don't need a potato kugel, an apple kugel, a noodle kugel. We don't need so many choices because when we're presented with more choices, it's harder, we'll always eat more.
Right.
That's just how the human nature works. So, I actually now, when I prepare meals, I serve it as they do in the restaurant. I plate everything in the kitchen.
Right.
If anybody wants more, I always bring more. I'll bring up more platters of food and put them on the table. But I'm not trying to restrict my guests. Right. But this is how they do it in a restaurant. I figure I can easily do that on a Friday night at my home as well. And believe me, I have plenty of meals where we do buffets. And,
I've been to your house. I know.
Yeah, we do family style, but that's just one approach, and also creates a lot less dishes to clean up when you're done.
And the advantage of pre-plating also, and this really also gets into how satisfied you feel with eating, is that you can make some variety. So let's say you're going to do a variety of vegetables, which is one thing you do want a variety of.
Right.
And the larger, the better. You can plate it on the dish so that it looks very attractive the way you've laid it out.
Yes.
And then when the person sees it, because we eat a lot with our eyes, and they see it and it looks beautiful.
Right. Yes, the presentation
is
everything. And when you were talking about vegetables, so yes, always lots of options, lots of vegetables, lots of salads,
right. And lots of colors.
And you can
arrange the colors on the plate.
Yes, so vegetables are always a great option for filling up your plate. Joining us today is Rebekah Fedrowitz. Rebekah is a board-certified holistic nutritionist. She is the founder of You Are Well, which is a natural health and holistic nutrition company, which she provides her services online. She also just launched her new podcast. So welcome, Rebekah.
Hi, Rebekah.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming on. So why don't you tell us, I know you have an interesting story in what your journey was to becoming a holistic nutritionist. So maybe share with our listeners a little bit about your background.
Absolutely. Yes, I do have certainly an interesting story. I struggled with various kind of non-specific health issues that started popping up in my teens and trickled into what at the time seemed to be very unrelated issues in my early 20s. That it started with sinus problems and allergies and led to hormonal imbalances and acne and weight gain, and no one was able to help me. No matter what test was run, no matter what doctor I saw, I kept getting the same, everything's normal, you'll just have to learn to live with it kind of response. And through a various series of events, I ended up discovering natural health and the idea of holistic nutrition. And it radically began to change my health, like very quickly. So I dove in head first, went back to school for holistic nutrition, and haven't looked back since. So that's what got me here.
Wow. How old were you when you started to discover, because you said you started to encounter all this as a teen, which must have been even more traumatic. When or how did somebody introduce you to the idea of treating things holistically or naturally?
So I was in my early 20s, and I was a certified group fitness instructor as well as a personal trainer. I did that as a hobby in college and just continued to work in that after college. And I had to maintain my continuing education. And I took a course that introduced me to a book that mentioned Ayurveda. And that just that introduction of Ayurveda was the first real look into this sort of whole body health approach. And once I dove into Ayurveda, that eventually, through various Google searches and articles and things like that, eventually found holistic nutrition and natural health in that way.
Maybe just tell our listeners what Ayurveda is, just so they know.
Ayurveda is an ancient Eastern philosophy. It's kind of similar to that of like Chinese medicine. It's just from the Middle East instead of from Asia. And it is very much a concept that the body, truly the mind and the physical body, as well as the emotional body, it's all connected. And so we have what they call doshas, or constitutional types. Mm-hmm. So within reason, you fall into a category, and based on that category, there are various foods that do or don't agree with you. And that there's even things like herbs, or the way you should be sleeping or working, and you can overwork and throw your doshas out of balance. So it's really about coming into balance in a way that supports this kind of concept of almost like a personality type, a physical, emotional, spiritual type.
So I think an example would that be like there are people who run very hot. And those people should probably stay away from spices like hot chili peppers that would heat them up even more, and tend towards more cooling foods like fruits. Is that right?
Yes.
Am I in the neighborhood over there?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Right. So it's not to say that you shouldn't be eating spicy food, but you want to err away from that because people with that hot constitutional type already have a very fiery digestion. And so adding to that fire can throw things out of balance. And once or twice, no big deal. But when you throw things out of balance, you're affecting not just your digestion, but also your tendency towards stress or rest, or even things like depression and anxiety. So it's all connected.
Right. I find it so interesting because I naturally know those things about myself, that what I need to go towards and stay away from. And it's when you pay attention and know this, it's really quite fascinating.
So fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. So today we're talking about mindful eating, and just how to, we're put in situations a lot where we say, oh, okay, I'm going to be, I hate to use the word good, but let's say I'm not going to indulge today because I am going to try and stick to a healthy eating plan. But we're thrown into situations where all that goes right out the window the minute we walk in and we see buffet tables laden with food and
or we're at a friend's house and the friends made all these delicacies because it's a special dinner or a special luncheon, and they're like, "Oh, just try it. You have to just try it. I made this." It's.
So we want to know. Do you have any tips for how to be in the moment, be aware of the choices? If you are going to choose to have a treat, like how do you stop maybe and not, just fall in and continue to eat the whole platter of cookies that are placed before you? So if you have any tips, we'd love to hear those.
Absolutely.
That'd be great.
So I think the first thing is to start with the premise of sort of this idea that we live a lifestyle that we want a retreat from. We need something to reward us. And we typically turn to food. You hear this a lot, even in parenting. If you're good, you can have this piece of candy, or it's your birthday, so you get cake. And it's like, well, what if we just had cake all the time? What if we just removed this idea that it's so hard to eat vegetables and we have to eat them in order to get cake? And we just said, hey, I enjoy all food and I don't need to deprive myself or have special treats. I can naturally allow myself to crave what I'm craving and understand that that means something. And so I absolutely believe that food should be special. It's to be celebrated. It is a way to socialize and to commemorate holidays and things like that. But removing this sort of surprise, special, I'm treating myself and I'm making up for all the bad by having this thing. If we can start there, then everything else sort of becomes easier. And then beyond that, understanding that a lot of times it's this, when it's a special thing that we either are allowing ourselves to have or we're depriving ourselves from, when we have it, we have that tendency to overeat it. Right. So if you get a beach vacation, it's like the person that goes, I got sunburned because I never reined in my sun exposure. Right. If you're there for 7 days, you don't worry about spending every minute of every day outside because you've got 7 days there. But if you're only there for one, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to be here from sun up to sundown. It's the same kind of concept with food. If you don't usually have something and you finally get it, you're like, well, I have to get as much of it as I can because I'm not going to have it again. Right. And so it's that sort of understanding that the greatest treat you can give yourself is to have as much as you want and stop.
Right.
Because you'll enjoy it so much more.
Right. I love your analogy about the beach vacation because I totally can relate to that. So the idea, I guess, that you're presenting is that there are no good foods, there are no bad foods. You can eat your treats but you should just balance that out with healthy eating as well. In other words, your diet should not just be pizza and hamburgers and chips, but you need to incorporate vegetables and fruits and good proteins, but not say this food is totally off limits because that's just going to send you begging for it.
Yes. And as a parent, that's something I have seen
Yeah.
I've seen the whole no thing played out in new ways. And I understand it with clients and food in a different light now. If you say no to something, it's the very thing you want. It's like, close your eyes and don't think about a pink elephant, right? What is the first thing you're going to think about, right? So I think there are certain times when you have to understand when something's not good for your body. Right. If you have food sensitivities, if there's something you don't tolerate, it is off the table. But because you are truly loving yourself and respecting your body, the desire for it goes away. Because, if you knew that something would kill you, right, you wouldn't feel deprived not having it. You'd feel grateful you had the opportunity to avoid it. And I think we need to see foods that are bad for us in that same way. And then choosing clean sources. Like if you're going to have a burger or pizza, just eat good quality food and just enjoy it when you have it. But yes, it is balanced because, if you have a certain aspect of your job that you love, like let's say you love a project, but you hate the filing afterwards. Yeah. If you let the filing go, it will eventually get in the way of you doing the thing you love. So if you currently don't love broccoli and you just want to eat pizza, but you never eat the broccoli, it's going to mess with your digestion. And soon enough, your digestion's going to hurt so bad, you can't enjoy the pizza when you eat it. So you have to think about things in that balanced light as well.
Right. It just seems like such a healthier approach to the way we eat food. We hear all these diets where you can't eat you can't eat this, or you can only have broth, or you can only have juice, or you can only have raw food. This seems like such a more easier way to approach our food choices when we don't place ourselves in these boxes with these restrictions.
Right. And it sounds like you're also talking a lot about being really conscious and aware of your body's response to what you're eating and how it makes you feel. Could you talk a little bit about, I think what gets a lot of people is they do, instead of mindful eating, mindless eating. So can you talk a little bit maybe also about, besides making the choices, but like how you eat food? Does that play a role in it?
This question. When I was getting my food coach certification back a long time ago, there was a lesson on this whole idea that so many times we eat mechanically and we think we want something and we just eat it and we think we've enjoyed it. But when we actually stop and chew and for just that moment, put ourselves fully present with what we're eating, we go, I don't even like this. Like this actually isn't that good. And how many times do we think we like something because we always have, or because it has an emotional connection, or maybe eating keeps us busy? If you've ever been bored and you're like, well, I'll just munch on something. And we stop and we just, even for part of that time, really think about the food, we realize we don't really want it. And so I think it starts with just this choice to be present and to, before eating anything, just say, okay, do I really want this, or am I eating this on autopilot? Right. And so many times I think people go, I'm eating it on autopilot, or I'm eating what I assume. I've had clients go, I wanted dessert. So I wanted something, so I had dessert after dinner, but then I felt like I was still craving something. And so we'll go through like the types of taste. And they go, what's funny? I'm actually craving something salty. And so by eating sweet, I never fulfilled what I really wanted, but I just ate it mindlessly.
Right.
So we practice something, Rebekah, we make a blessing before we eat any food. And a lot of us who've grown up with this, we do that mindlessly, where we want to encourage people now when they make the blessing before food, which is generally thanking God that he provided the food for us and where the food came from, that we use those blessings with intention, and we kind of put ourselves, we already have it built in to put us in that mindful state. But I think we take it for granted. Right. So I'd like to encourage people, when you're making the blessing, before you eat the food, that you kind of really think about why you're making that blessing and what it means. And maybe that will help us in terms of our choices. And
at least some of the time, this may not be, can't do it all the time, but at least a good part of the time, look at the food you're eating, smell it. Not ridiculously, but look at it and just appreciate it before you start eating it.
Yes.
So that it's like a multisensory experience. It's not just about the taste. I just wanted to share with you just like a quick little anecdote. So, like 2 years ago, I actually lost quite a bit of weight, but not on a specific diet, just making better and better and better healthy choices and exercising a lot. And I'm still doing quite well with it. And recently, was it June 1st? I think June 1st is National Donut Day, for those of you who aren't aware. So one of the people where I work brought in a whole big box of the small donuts from Krispy Kreme. So Krispy Kreme, it's kosher.
Right.
So,
yes.
So in the past, like I have kind of liked their donuts, although honestly now I eat donuts maybe once or twice a year. So I was having like a break in the middle of the morning and my second cup of coffee. So I said, okay, I'm going to have a donut with it. And I actually was looking forward to it. And I actually just sat and like made the blessing and looked at the donut and then started to eat it. And I discovered I really don't like those donuts. Like it didn't, you know what? It didn't taste as good as the memory of it.
Yeah. That does happen. Yeah.
Which is really funny, actually.
Yeah, it is good. Okay, so Rebekah, do you have any like last piece of advice that you'd like to impart, in terms of people, leaving and going forward and being able to implement, today about when they sit down for their next meal, their next snack, when they're out?
Right.
Yeah. So I would just say, first off, I think the blessing is so helpful. And just that moment of saying something genuine that is not something on repeat, looking at your food, smelling your food, and then letting go of the stress and just allowing your body's natural signals to kind of kick in. Am I full? Right. Do I really want this? And go with it. If you want one more bite of something that you told yourself you were only going to have 3 bites of, let it go. Right. If you need it today, you eat it. Tomorrow, you may not. It isn't about being perfect one day and then going off on the deep end the next. Allow your body to kind of speak to you in a way and give you the direction of what it is that you need. And when we let go of that stress and when we let go of the idea of having to be perfect or good, eating becomes much easier.
I think that's excellent advice. I really do
right.
it. I'm going to try and take that more to heart. I try and eat that way.
That is excellent.
But that is excellent. Okay, Rebekah, thank you so much, Rebekah.
Thank you. It was nice.
She could be found at youarewellhealth.com. So go ahead, check out her online services and programs if you want to listen to her podcast. That can all be found at youarewellhealth.com. All right, Rebekah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebekah.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Take care.
Thanks. You too.
Bye-bye.
And that is it for this episode of Let My People Eat. Please visit our website at letmypeopleeat.com and leave us a comment. Get in touch at our email at podcast@letmypeopleeat.com or call us at 317-659-0004. Post on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook with the hashtag #LetMyPeopleEatPodcast. If you like this show, please make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. Tell your friends and family and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts.
And please remember that although we are certified professionals, this is not a medical advice podcast. No content, posts, or comments should be interpreted as professional guidance. Always speak to your own health practitioner about making the right life changes for you.
Until next time, I am Jill Scharfman.
And I am Andrea Moskowitz.
Thanks for joining us.
And go in good health.